Welcome! In this video about the RoboJet Floss flying cotton candy machine, I'm actually not going to talk much about the RoboJet Floss flying cotton candy machine. Instead, I'm going to talk about mixing cotton candy Flossine with sugar to make cotton candy floss sugar. Most people that work with cotton candy, I find, actually buy pre-mixed floss sugar. It comes in typically half-gallon milk carton jugs that people are used to just opening and pouring, and there's nothing wrong with buying your product that way. However, I very much prefer to mix my own for reasons that are discussed on my website blog, floatingcottoncandy.com. You have convenience, price, better assortment of flavors, and the ability to control the freshness and texture of the material. If you read the blog article, I think you'll agree the benefits to mixing your own Flossine or floss sugar really outweigh the few advantages to buying a pre-mixed product. But I'll leave that for you to research and read the article on your own. What stops, I think, a lot of people is just unfamiliarity with how simple it is to mix your own Flossine. So I'm going to talk about the two basic techniques and a couple tips that really make this incredibly simple and more effective than anything I had found on the internet when I started working with cotton candy. Now, if you're doing large bulk orders, the easiest thing to do is to buy these big 5-gallon jugs that you get at home improvement stores. Typically, you see them used for paint. The distinction is that you can get these spin top lids, typically called gamma lids. And all you're doing is you're popping on a lid combination that allows you to have a sealed rubber grommet that will allow you to keep the freshness in and the moisture out. So you buy the typical container, and then you buy the special lid, you snap it on real tight, pound it on with a rubber mallet, and then you can spin lock the lid off and reseal it anytime you want. So the typical method for mixing Flossine is just to take 25 pounds of sugar. A 25-pound bag is easily purchasable at about any store. Pour the whole thing in one of these, and then add your actual Flossine mix. I use gold medal. There's several companies. They're probably pretty equivalent. The standard mixture rate is simply 1 tablespoon of Flossine mixture, and it's highly concentrated, so be careful. You spill this, you'll be cleaning up for a long time. 1 tablespoon of Flossine for every 5 pounds of sugar. So for a 25-pound bag, that's 5 tablespoons. I'll typically pour in about a third of the bag, put in a tablespoon or two, another third tablespoon or two. Finish off the 25-pound bag, put in the last tablespoon, seal this up very carefully, and then I'll take a second bucket and I'll simply pour the mixture from one bucket to the other 10, 12, 15 times, and that pouring action mixes the material well enough, making sure that I end up with the material in the container that has the spin top lid. Spin the lid on, put it away for storage, take it to my event, and that's all you have to do. Pour it back and forth 10, 15 times. Now, the thing is, if you're not used to mixing Flossine, I'll warn you, it doesn't look dark in color the way that the pre-purchased mixes do, but once you put it in a machine and heat it up, it comes out looking just the same. Now, the only thing to consider is that for a lot of people, they don't want to handle 25 pounds at a time. Either that's too difficult, number one, not everybody wants to heft 25-pound buckets of sugar and pour them back and forth, and you do get a lot of dust from that process, so you want to do it outside. And two, not everybody does events large enough that they're going to use 25 pounds at once. And one of the advantages of mixing your own Flossine is you can make just enough material for the event at hand, so you don't have stuff sitting around that's going to absorb moisture and go stale, or excess flavor that maybe you won't use again frequently enough and ends up going to waste. So as often as not, what I like doing is mixing it in smaller containers that allow me to make smaller quantities, make it easier to store, transport, and also to get directly into the machine itself. So from that perspective, I would say probably 80% of the time I'm working in smaller batches, and for that what I will use is these Rubbermaid drink containers that actually get really bad reviews online as drink containers. They're called Spillmates or something of that nature, and I should also say there are links to everything I use on my website, floatingcottoncandy.com, but they're not publicly visible. I have a special page called the Robo Boss Success Guide, and if you visit the site, fill out a little form for more information and just say you'd like links to the Success Guide, I'm happy to share it. But I don't like having it publicly available where competitors or just anybody can see it. I don't sell these materials, but I do keep the links active so that you can find all of this without me having to specify links in a video, and simply because those links often change, and so I have to update the site pretty frequently. Now, having said that, these drink containers actually get really pretty poor reviews online because they don't seal for liquid very well, so I have read, but they work fine for sugar with one caveat. In order to keep moisture out, what I have done is I found that if you get a 60 millimeter O-ring used typically for industrial or automotive purposes, you can slide it over there and then that gets you a nice tight moisture seal, and you can get these really pretty cheap online, something like a dime a piece or a quarter a piece. And again, I have a link to where you can get a 10-pack for like $2.50 delivered. So with that, it actually seals the sugar in very well. In order to mix this up, there's really two ways you can do it, and both require a larger Rubbermaid drink serving container. The two ways that you can do it is, one, you can fill this container with sugar, which will be about 4 pounds, depends on the humidity, because of course sugar will absorb humidity and change the weight. Or you can simply draw a line on this container at the 5-pound mark. There's no right answer, it's whatever you're most comfortable with. I typically will just hand pour into this. I know where the 4-pound and the 5-pound mark are. My markings have worn off, but I do it frequently enough that I just know where the lines are, and there are actually line gradients on these containers. So it's very easy to do. I'll use a very large scoop, typically a big glass, 2.5 cup, 3 cup measuring cup, go right into a 50-pound bag of sugar, but in order to get it in here without spillage, what you need to do is to get a funnel, but you don't want a kitchen funnel, because those are made for kitchen uses and usually have very small openings. So go to any big box store that sells automotive supplies and get a funnel that's made for automobiles, typically for oil or transmission fluid, so you can get a really big funnel, and they will typically taper down more than you need. So for $2, $2.50 at a Walmart or a Murray's or a Pep Boys, you can buy one of these funnels and just cut it off, shear it off, so that it fits your container about how you want. Because I want a really big opening so I can pour sugar through there real fast. If I can take big old cup of sugar, and with just a couple of scoops, like 3 or 4, I can get 4 or 5 pounds of sugar in here real easily. Then all we need to do is take the sugar and mix it with the Flossine. So the reason I use 2 of these is if you wanted to fill this up, and I think this is what a lot of people do, is they'll fill this up, it's 4 pounds of sugar, then we just want to transport it into the larger container. And the larger container, the Mixer Mate, I think they call the larger one, and there's a link on my website. The advantage to having the larger container is that it allows room for mixing. Now, if you're doing 5 pounds, 1 tablespoon. If you're doing 4 pounds, well, there's 3 teaspoons in a tablespoon. So for 4 pounds, what I do is 2 heaping teaspoons. So that gets me about the right mixture, and this isn't rocket science, so you don't have to be perfect. Close does count. 2 heaping teaspoons, put the lid on. The interesting thing is this has a pour spout, but I never use the pour spout. I just use this as a lid. But what makes this really convenient is 4 pounds and even 5 pounds leaves plenty of empty space in this, and it's got a handle. So I'm going to be quiet while I shake this because my voice will sound weird. But with just a couple of rotations, a few shakes, a few spins and turns, I've almost instantly got 4 pounds really well mixed. And because it has a large mouth, it's easy to get right back in to the smaller container, and smaller containers are the ones that I use for storage. Now this hole was cut to the size of this container, and now I can immediately refill all 4 pounds right back into this container. You'll notice that when you do this, the interesting thing is the sugar actually has to be tapped into place because some settling needs to occur in order to get the sugar to settle back down. So 4 pounds went in, 4 pounds came back out, and as I say, the color isn't going to look very dark on the video camera, and it doesn't actually look very dark when properly mixed in real life. but even talking on a video, it takes 10, 12, 15 seconds to mix up 4 pounds of sugar. As long as you've got a big funnel and a big scoop, you can pour it into your large container, shake it a few times, give it a couple rotations, pour it back in. And the reason these are so ideal is that there's no air in here. So I fill them right to the brim. No air means no moisture, humidity collects. 2, the flip top has an opening that is ideal for filling cotton candy machines. Whether you use a RoboFloss or not, this fills in, and I don't need to use scoops and risk spillage. This will fit the nozzle of pretty much any cotton candy machine. I filled gold medals, RoboJet flosses, Paragons, everything with it. And when you're done pouring, you can seal it. So if you tip it over, no spillage. This really aids productivity, spoilage, transportability. It's the only way to mix and carry and transport Flossine. And again, with the O-ring added, I find it does an excellent job of keeping moisture out. So the days of stirring, pouring, measuring, I know that when I fill this, it's 4 pounds. I know that's just a little bit more than 2 rounded teaspoons. Dump the whole thing in here, put the lid on, shake it a couple times, pour it back in here, tap it to settle, ready to go. And then for transporting these, you don't have to do this, but I've searched around. I have many hours of research into this. Perfect container for me are these Hefties. There's links to them, again, on the website. I don't remember what they call this model, but it's a specific one that has a flip-top lid with a gasket to keep moisture out, and it holds 4 of these just ideally. So I used to carry like 8 or 10 of them in a larger container, but if you got a long ways to go from your vehicle to your event, and sometimes you do, 8 or 10 of them, that adds up in weight. So being able to have 4 of them in packages, and then I'll usually have a couple of these tubs with different flavors in each one, with a flip-top lid that has a 1 snap in front, nice comfortable built-in handles in the side. So I've got basically 16 pounds of floss in one little container in 4 separate packs, which is nice because if it's a humid day, I'm only opening 1 sub-container, 1 4-pounder at a time. And again, each one has a O-ring for sealing and a little snap lid at the top. I don't need scoops anymore. Pours right in the top of the bowl, lid closes back up. Those are perfect for fitting on carts, shelves, anywhere you want. And if you knock it over, there's no spillage. The only math you've got to remember is if you're going to pour in 5 pounds, it's 1 tablespoon level. If you're going to do 4 pounds, which is what these hold, it's 2 rounded teaspoons. It doesn't take any memory more than that. The only thing I'm not showing you here is the large glass scoop that I use to get the 4 or 5 pounds in here. At first, you'll probably want to get a kitchen scale, and if you want to do 5 pounds, measure a line on here so you know where it's at. After your first couple times, that marker will rub off, but you'll remember where it's at. I can tell you that the Rubbermaid mixer mate bottles are essentially 4 pounds. You don't have to measure that. You can take my word for it. When you fill them full and tap them down, that's 4 pounds worth of sugar, which will soon be sugar Flossine. I don't think if I left anything out, so you can go 25 pounds at a time, and that's 5 tablespoons. Get at least 2 of these so you can pour back and forth and mix, and make sure you get the gamma seals so that the spin locks, because prying off the old-fashioned lids like they typically sell at the home improvement stores, tough on the fingers and frankly doesn't seal that well. So get your gamma lids, 2 buckets to do 25 pounds, or as I say, more conveniently, the little assortment of Rubbermaid and Hefty materials I have here allows you to really pre-mix, pre-sort, pre-carry, and keep all your materials dry. So those are my tips on mixing Flossine, and when it's this easy, it's why I don't purchase pre-mixed Flossine anymore. Again, there's a blog article on floatingcottoncandy.com that explains the math behind how much money you save in this process. But frankly, that's just a secondary benefit. Being able to mix just the flavor and color that I need for the event on hand, having it in much more convenient containers, more resistant to moisture and water, easier transportability. That's really what motivates me. The cost savings is pretty significant, but hey, it's still sugar, so there's not a lot of money involved, but it's really the professionalism and the flexibility. And if you're working solo, as I do in most events that I do, the enhanced productivity of being able to quickly access the flavor I want, and pour it directly into the machine without worrying about any spillage whatsoever, I think actually earns me a higher rate on a per hour basis as well. So I hope you find this video useful. Again, ordinarily talking about my favorite Robo Jet Floss cotton candy machine, but in this case, this information applies to pretty much any machine on the market. Have a good day, and I hope to see you next time. Be sure to visit floatingcottoncandy.com and ask for the link to my success guide if you'd like links to all of these materials and other information that most of it I don't sell, but I do keep track of what the best products are and the best sources for pricing on supplies that cotton candy vendors need. Thank you.